Mute though.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to the last Health Equity NRT workshop session for 2023. We are so excited. I'm going to ask everybody to mute their lines, or if Francis can mute. We're going to get right into it and introduce our presenter for today, Ms. Valisa Perry, who is definitely dear to me and dear to my heart. I actually got time to spend with her this weekend, so I was excited and happy. Always giving me gems of knowledge. And with that, Ms. Valisa L. Perry is entering into her 7th year as Executive Director of the United Health Organization and Project Healthy Living. She serves as a facilitator of the Wayne County Oral Health Coalition and was recently selected to join the prestigious Culture of Health Leadership Institute for Racial Healing as a member of their inaugural cohort. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation funds this groundbreaking fellowship. As the Executive Director of United Health Organization and Project Healthy Living, Ms. Perry leads efforts to help improve health outcomes and the quality of life of all residents in Southeast Michigan through education about the early detection of asymptomatic and preventable diseases. UHO, United Health Organization, is credited with helping to save hundreds of lives annually and educating people about healthy habits and lifestyles through community engagement and public health screenings. Through the Wayne County Oral Health Coalition, Ms. Perry leads efforts to educate and advocate for social justice for vulnerable populations who need equitable access to affordable oral health. God and family are central to Ms. Perry's life. She is active with her church family and prioritizes quality time with her 5 siblings, many nieces, nephews, and friends. In her spare time, she enjoys sports and table games as both a spectator and a competitive player of ping pong and racquetball. Ms. Perry holds the distinction of being a semi-professional pool player. Did not know that, but now we know, Ms. Perry. With that in mind, I want to give the conversation over to Valisa to provide us with some good tidbits for today. Valisa.
Well, thank you. I was listening, I was like, who's she talking about? But when you said a semi-professional pool player, I was like, oh, that's me. Though I don't play anymore, I actually gave my pool stick to my nephew. I'm doing other things. And so I just want to thank everybody for being here. I know time is something we can't get back. So we select the things that we want to do with our time. So I really am gracious and thankful that you're spending it with us. I do want to share some information. So, Francis, want to start the slide, please? So, I'm going to be talking today about leveraging narratives and community voice, really amplifying the community voice and what it means and what it takes to do that work. Francis, please. We're going to attempt to do this video. Francis, let's start. Can you hear it? Thumbs up.
Cargo by Greg Kimura. Greg Kimura said, "You enter life a ship laden with meaning and purpose and gifts, sent to be delivered to a hungry world. And as much as the world needs your cargo, you need to give it away. Everything depends on this. But the world forgets its needs. You forget your mission, and the maps, the ancestral maps needed to guide you, have become faded scrawls on the parchment of dead pharaohs. The cargo weighs you heavy the longer it is held, and spoilage becomes a risk. Now, the ship sputters from port to port, and at each you ask, is this the way? But the way cannot be found without knowing the cargo. And the cargo cannot be known without recognizing it is simply this: you have gifts. The world needs your gifts. You need to deliver them. The world may not know it's starving, but the hungry know, and they will find you when you discover your cargo and start to give it away.
You know, I was really blessed to receive this from someone because it spoke to me and the work that we're doing and the work that we're actually doing around the country. The gifts that we have is really not for us. It's to give it to other sources, whatever your heart says. Like my heart is in community. So my gift goes to the community. So my cargo, what God gave me, is when I go to the community. And the truth is they give me more than I get. So it's an equal share. So and I will share this in cargo and my slides after my presentation. So Francis, are we able to let me share and then we'll get good. If you can't hear or something you can't see, if you let me know, I will, Francis will adjust it for us. Can I share now?
Yes, you're all good.
Are you able to see this?
Yep.
Okay, good job. Okay, so I mentioned that we're going to talk about leveraging narratives and community voice, and it's really just amplifying our community. And so leveraging narrative and community voice in Detroit and in other locations, it is essential for addressing historical challenges, promoting equity and fostering trust and driving innovation. Community-led solutions reflect the unique identities and the needs of the city and its residents, harnessing the power of stories for inclusive decision making. And so the cultural context and the historical context and the cultural identity, community-led reservation is centering community voice ensures that these efforts are aligned with the needs and the interests of the people who live in the city, leading to a more successful and sustainable transformation. Racial and economic equity, the Detroit faces significant racial and economic disparities. Leveraging narratives and community voice can help address these disparities by actually involving marginalized communities in decision-making process and prioritizing their perspectives. Innovative solution, engaging the community in storytelling, just storytelling. People can be engaged by sharing their stories, and decision-making can lead to a discovery of new approaches because the answer a lot of times is in the community, and create a solution that is rooted in the local knowledge. Trust building. Trust is key. Trust is key in relationships, personal relationships, community relationships, business relationships. I was an auto salesperson. I was #1 in Michigan for many years because I build trust. When you build trust, you have a lot to work with because people allow you to do the things that you need to do. And so giving historical and systemic issues, building trust between residents and institutions is critical. Narrative-based approaches can help foster trust and collaboration by valuing and respecting the lived experience of Detroiters. And accountability. We all have to be accountable. Accountability, transparent. You have to be transparent. If you're not transparent, especially working in communities, people see that you're not transparent. You may not notice that you're not transparent, but everybody else around you know that something is wrong with this picture or that individual. And so that helps build accountability in the city, governments, and the central. In the city, individuals and communities' decision-making process through narrative sharing help ensure the government and organizations are accountable for the people that they serve. So there's a few examples that I want to share with you. And so, well, I want to just summarize what I just said. So in summary, leveraging the narratives and community voice in Detroit are other areas of importance for addressing historical changes, promoting equity, fostering trust, and driving innovation. Community-led situations that reflect the unique identity and needs of the city and the residents. And so the narrative and the examples that I want to share with you on leveraging narratives and community voice is that, so what does leveraging a narrative of amplifying community voice looks like in action? So let me give you a few examples. We have in Detroit, we have the Charles H. Wright Museum, Afro-American History. We have the Motown Museum, Detroit Institution of Art, and Belle Isle. Detroit is a very diverse city, but it is 79% Black. So when the community began to discuss the absence of a place to display Afro-American history, the community groups talked about designing and helping support a unique museum that will display the Afro-American harsh history. This is the Charles H. Wright Museum. Community and their voice came together to create this place for them to share their gifts and talents and to market their gifts and talents. The world-renowned Motown was literally a small house because it was critical site to place that raised the community voice in sound. From Aretha Franklin asking for some respect and Michael Jackson promising to be there. This is what they created. And they brought so many young people from the community to use their voice in song. And a lot of those voices are well known around the world in their songs and in their gifts and their talent, because the community were able to come together and define what was important to them. And they marketed, and look what happened. Aretha Franklin, Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, so many other talents because of community. The massive Detroit Institute of Art to the community voice and house the art, cinematics, and music represent the interests of Detroit diverse population. Recognizing our history, putting it on display, listening to us. They've been around for ever since 1898, but they recognize community because community had a voice and they used their voice. Big point. Having one and using your voice is different. And they use their voice and they talk to different entities that this is what we need for our community. And most likely they will adhere to those requests. But I think the most impactful experience occurred during the COVID-19. Detroit was hit especially hard in the early days. Literally, hundreds of Detroiters died in a few months. Families didn't have the opportunity to bury their loved ones, not even before then to go into the hospital to see their loved ones. Their loved ones died and they could not say farewell to them. The city stepped up, and I met the two women that had the ideal that came out of the community. They had the ideal and they took the ideal to the mayor, and the mayor thought it was a good ideal, and he rallied around so many individuals in the community, and they pulled their resources and their gifts and their talents. And people, thousands of people, were able to view 1,500 different portraits of people that had lost their lives during this time. I had the opportunity to visit this location because my mother was one of those people that her portrait was on the grass. It was about, I think, about 10 miles of pictures that people that I've seen people that I didn't even know was sick. It was wonderful. It was that time that everyone needed to have some closure to the loss of those loved ones. But they did a lot more than just having a viewing place. Because of the voices of people, they gave the people what they really needed. And they were able to drive over and put flowers in front of the pictures. The city rallied together with some business restaurants, and they gave us $85 so the family, after they drove through, could go to certain restaurants. They called first, and the food would be prepared, and they would come out and give the family the food so the family can come together to as like a repast. It was a wonderful experience, but I want to let you know that it came from the community. They put together a wonderful booklet, and the booklet has one of our statues downtown, and this statue has all the pictures of the people that those photographs were on the line right here in the picture on the front of that booklet. Inside of the booklet, they named everyone. It was just a wonderful experience. Not a good experience, but a wonderful experience because we were able to say farewell to our loved ones. But that's the power of community. So there are some key points why it is critical to leverage narratives and community voice. Empowerment. Allowing individuals to share their stories and experience, empower them, give them the sense of urgency, ownership, and decision-making process. Inclusivity. It ensures that the diverse range of perspectives and voices are considered, leading to a more inclusive and equitable outcome in policy, project, and initiatives. Authenticity. Community voice and narrative bring authenticity to the project as they reflect the actual needs and the desires of the people affected, enhancing the changes of success and acceptance. Sustainable solution. Community input often leads to a more sustainable solution, as it takes into account the long-term impact on people and the environment involved. Reducing disparities. By listening to the center marginalized voice, we can actually work towards reducing disparities and ensuring that everyone has an equitable stake in the decision-making process. Very important for the community. They need to feel valued and their voice need to be heard. Social inclusion. Encouraging community voice fosters a sense of belonging and among residents, leading to stronger and more resilient community. Realizing collective goals. When communities are actively engaged in decision-making, they are more likely to work collectively towards shared goals and aspirations. So overall, leveraging narratives and centering community voice is vital for fostering collaboration, understanding, and developing the solution that genuinely address the concerns and admiration of the community. It ensures that decisions is made with the people and not for the people, leading to a more meaningful and sustainable outcome. And so there's 10 steps that you should know before you attempt to leverage the narratives in the community. One of the biggest steps, and we found true because I work in community for years, young girl. People walk in not having an ideal of who we are and what we're about. So it is paramount that you educate yourself before you go into any community. You want to learn that community. You want to know about their history. You want to know about their culture. You want to know about any specific things that they're dealing with. So when you're talking to them, first you have some confidence in the things that you're saying, but they feel like you have taken some time to learn about them. They know when you go in my community, I already know what you may not know, but it really is an honor when someone comes in and have taken the time to research to know some things about us or any community. Building relationships, you can't even move without relationships. You know, I remember people saying it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so in community is who you know. And so building a relationship, you have to go into a community and you have to establish trust and rapport with members of the community. And then you have to learn to have what you call an active listening ear. So many people hear, but they don't listen. A lot of people will hear in a conversation and they're thinking about what they're going to say before you finish what you're saying. So they're not actively listening. But when you're listening with your ears and your body, 87% of communication is body language. So when you're listening with your 2 ears and your entire body, people are saying to themselves, they're really interested in what I have to say. And so those are very important. In the sales arena, and I used to train salespersons that are really renowned around the country because I taught them about listening and body language, and they mastered it. I told them, and I'm gonna share with you, if you want to know how to be a good listener, go to your mirror and see what you look like when you're listening. You're gonna learn so much about yourself. So you want to spend some time with yourself saying, this is how I look when I say this. This is how I look with my facial expression, because you really don't know unless you see the reflections of yourself. So I identify the stakeholders. We call it the gatekeepers. Stakeholders are essential to your success. Now, let me be very frank with you. Stakeholders don't look like corporate America. A stakeholder in the community could be someone that didn't finish high school, but been working in the community for years. Got a quick example of that. I was invited years ago to a meeting and a lady was speaking. So I came to the meeting. And so she started speaking and I didn't understand a word she was saying. And I looked around, it was about 60 or 70 people in the room and they seemed to understand what she was saying. And she was the gatekeeper. Everyone in that room, because she had a stuttering problem, but everyone in that room knew who she was. And everyone in that room know that when she said that you could enter this community, then you could. But if she said you couldn't, you wasn't able to do that. So it's not what corporate America look like when you talk about community. Because normally when you go into a community and you have leadership in the community, they're working out their passion and their love and their gifts. Very important. Set clear objectives. You want to know why you're entering the community. You want to make sure that you can articulate that to the leadership. You want to make sure you know so you will be able to clearly guide your approach, and it'll help you measure your impact. Provide support and resources for the community. If you don't have support and resources, wait before you come in the community. Because if they open the door and let you in, they need some help. Our organization, Wayne County Oral Health Coalition, go out into the community. We don't go out with empty hands. We talk about oral health. We educate the community about oral health, but we bring resources that we know that community needs. And so they receive us well because we're not only educating them, but we have something in our hands that they have a need for. Make sure you do that. That's really important. And select the appropriate method. Choose the most suitable method for gathering community narratives. This could include a survey, focus group, interviews, workshops, or other. But if you decide to do a survey and you go into a community and a large percentage of those community can't read or write, then that becomes a moot point. They understand that you don't even know who they are. And so that's where it becomes important when you have partnerships and you have gatekeepers that's helping you navigate you through some of the better ways of approaching that community. Don't go in the community trying to be the answer to the community, because you don't have the answer. You might have some resources, but the answer will be found in working together with one another. Don't go in the community with pre-notion about who they are, what they need, and how you're going to solve that problem. When you get in the community, I've met so many people that have traveled around the world and went to different communities, and the community wasn't what they thought it was, and their need wasn't what they thought it was. They had a learning curve, they were received, and they actually fell in love with that community. And a lot of the people moved in those communities because they realized those communities had value. Sometimes the people that share who we are don't always share the true stories. So you want to make sure, you want to foster the inclusive environment, create space and opportunities for all voices to be heard, especially those from marginalized and unrepresented groups. Very important. And if you don't have the whole story, you can't create the whole solution. The whole story becomes when all the community are able to address what those issues are and working together to solve those issues. The voices are very, very important. Document and preserve the narrative. It is important. You want to do it honestly. You want to make sure that you are honoring the stories of the community. They need to know how you're handling their information. They may not have a PhD. They may not even have a high school diploma, but they know how they want to be treated. They are valued. I've met so many wonderful people that have so many gifts and talent. It just blows my mind. I am so proud to be a part of my community because they are so talented and gifted. And so preserving the document is very important. And so those are little hints, and I hope you kind of heard me in some things because they're really important when we are entering the various communities around the country. And so, so when you're engaged in conversation about racism, it is not easy. It's essential to have an approach to be sensitive and have empathy and respect for the person you're speaking with. So I always suggest people, the first thing you do when you select a person, you met a person, you feel comfortable that you want to have this topic about racism, that first of all, you want to educate yourself again about racism. You want to know the definition about racism. You want to know about that community and what they're dealing with. You want to have a really good understanding about the history, about what systematic racism is, and all of these current issues that relate to the racial inequalities in that community. You're going to learn something all by yourself when you get that information, but then you are able to articulate that with another individual. But what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to put some color to the information that you learn. You'll get some real life experience from some of the technical and the book knowledge that you're learning. And so it's a building process. And so you want to approach this conversation with empathy towards that person. You want to understand, and you want to recognize that racism is a very tough conversation. One of the biggest reasons, because we never was taught how to have this conversation. Sometimes the words that we will be creating in the conversation, in the dialogue, is the first time that you probably had that conversation, which will be difficult, especially when you're looking at somebody that look different from you. And especially if you have heard or read some of their history, it becomes a little uneasy. So if it's uneasy inside, that is coming out of your air about yourself. Acknowledge it to the person. Say, I really feel uncomfortable. And if you see the other person feeling uncomfortable, take a moment. Say, look, ooh, let's just take a minute. This is kind of uneasy. Let's take a deep breath. Let's take some water. Let that air settle. And so then you start back having that conversation. Active listening. I can't say enough about active listening. I earned a 6-figure income on learning how to actively listen to people. Active listening really would change the way that you view a lot of things. And you hear things that you never heard before. Start your conversations and your statements and sharing your experiences and your feelings with an I statement. Like, I feel concerned about the inequity of our society. That's an I statement. Avoid blame. Avoid calling somebody a racist. Avoid that, because when you want to have a conversation with people and when you want to share any type of knowledge or information, you want that individual to be open to receiving your information. And the only way they can do that is to you not pointing them out. You're not making them feel bad about their incorrect information, their feelings at that moment. You have to understand that even in a conversation will not change that person's decision or the way they think at that moment. But over time, and building that relationship, that trusted relationship, people will start opening themselves up to wonder, ooh, was that incorrect information I've been living with for all of my life? Even my parents shared that with me. They'll open up and they'll start taking some other information in, because if you want to change as the individual, you have to change the information that you're listening to and what's inside of you. And that's how we change with new information. So with that, when you want someone to have a conversation with you, and I did say conversation, conversations is a two-way conversation, not a monologue. You want to talk and then you want to hear someone. So you have to ask open-end questions. Open-end questions will give people a way to share the information. You have to feel comfortable with dead air. Because if you ask someone a question, it may be an answer very deep in their minds, or they have the answer, but they have to figure the words of how to articulate that message to you. Sometimes it takes a little time. Dead air is all right. Don't fill it with your thoughts. Give that person the opportunity to gain their information, to gain their words, and then share what they want to share with you. Those are just very, very important. Sharing your experience is important. Providing resources to the community, as I said earlier, being patient with people. Patience is important. We need to have patience with each other in everything that we do. Everybody may not be in that place that you are in. Everyone may not have the knowledge and the wisdom that you have. So you have to have patience to help carry people along the way. Eventually, I know from my own personal experience, you get it sooner or later, but you have to have somebody to have patience. Stay calm and respectful. I can't even tell you how many times people have said some things that really was cruel, but you had never saw that or seen that on my face or in my body language, because I believe that they just don't know better. And I'm not going to react to that. That's important, because what was important to me was to either render what I came to give or share what I came to share, and not take offense of someone that just don't know. Very important. That's a little wisdom that, you grow in that, but you can get those things over time, because when you do the opposite, you're going to get a reaction. And my mother will always say, you never land where other people sit at. If they're sitting in the wrong place, you don't want to be there. You think higher and you act higher, and you treat people the way you want to be treated. That's from my mom. I love quoting some of the things that she says. She's helped me get to this point. And so just offering support to each other, very, very important. We need support, even in the sector of community, in our community, in our work, the things we do, just this work we do here. We need support from each individual. I want to make a disclaimer. My job here, for the rest of my time here on earth, is to share my story. I want you to know my story. But I want you to tell me your story. I want to get to know you, and I want you to get to know me, because I bet you I'll be more than what you think I am. And I'm quite sure I will feel the same about you. We need to learn to articulate our stories, and it'll make a difference in our relationship. Remember that talking about racism can be challenging, and people may have different levels of awareness, readiness in engaging in these conversations. Our goal should be to promote understanding and awareness rather than confronting and accusing. Approach conversation with empathy, patience, and commitment to building a bridge of understanding. So I want to do a breakout. I really do like breakouts because it gives us opportunity to communicate with one another. There's 4 questions here, so it'll be 4 groups. We have 11 people here, so however that group, Francis, I'm going to trust you in making these groups, but the groups will select their questions. The questions will put you in the group. So the questions was designed to stimulate discussion, encourage reflection, and generate action from your group. Select a group number. In that group, select one person to keep the notes and another person to report out. We have 10 minutes. So I'm going to put this in the hands of Francis to put us in the group. We will come back after 10 minutes and do a 1-minute report out. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Felisa.
So you know what, let me do this so I can read the questions, because I don't know if you can see them very clearly. The first group is, can you share an example from your experience where the community put in significant impact a project or a decision? What were the outcome? Group 2, how can you ensure you effectively capture and incorporate diverse narratives within the project and initiative? Group 3, what potential challenges or barriers might you face when trying to center community voice, and how can you overcome them? And number 4, I really can't even see. I can't see number 4. And so number 4, I can't see it. It's not on my screen. So there's a number 4. Can you see it, number 4?
Yeah, it says, what strategies can you employ to ensure that the community voice continues to be heard throughout the life cycle of a project, from planning to implementation and evaluation? So in the chat box, I dropped 4 different notes documents that have those questions included at the top, with some space to take notes. And then I've just opened the breakout rooms, which are self-select to join. So they have the title there that corresponds with those 4 groups. Is everyone able to see the breakouts, or I think if you go into the ellipses at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and then you click on breakout rooms there, that should be able to pop those up if you don't see them automatically. And then you can just click to join whichever you'd be more interested in. And I can also add folks manually if people are not seeing how to add themselves.
So your time will start in few. Well, it looks like everybody's back. Is 9 people in the room? How was it? So what we're going to do is we're going to really do a report out. And so I'm going to start off with 4. No, we're going to start off with 3, and we're going to go backwards. Because most people say, oh man, I'm in number 1, we're going to be first. So I'm fooling you now. So we're going to start off with group 3. So all I want you to do is share the, tell the question and what you guys discuss. What do you want to share with us? Number 3, you're up.
All right. Well, Jan and I were in group 3, and we were looking at the potential challenges or barriers you might face when trying to center community voice. And, you know, a lot of what we talked about was what you discussed in your presentation earlier. And that is, you know, building trust with groups of, you know, individual and people who may look different than us, speak different languages, from different backgrounds, so that they could let us in and allow us to, and open up to us so that we can help elevate their voice and make their voices heard. Could be a definite barrier that has to be overcome. Creating those relationships with leaders in those communities that can then help us bridge that divide with community members can be difficult to get off the ground, and, you know, take some time to do. And sometimes people could be hesitant in why you want to come into their group, why you want to connect with individuals that they've already established these relationships with, and a little nervous of you coming in from this outside group from your state capital or something into their rural community, urban community, somewhere else. And you don't want to make sure, if they're going to vouch for you to come in and connect with their community and help make this community's voices heard, that you're somebody that could be trusted. So that takes time to build those intimate relationships. And then assuring that you have the proper resources. And you had mentioned this, when you go into communities, you want to not just be taking data, taking information from people. You want to be able to give. And that could be hard too. Jan was talking about senior centers, low-income seniors, that she's going into these senior centers to connect with them. But it's the resources for oral health for low-income seniors who can't afford out-of-pocket costs, and Medicare doesn't have any of the services available for them. There's very limited, and she sort of struggles with how she can offer help to them, when going into these resources that they need. So that's a barrier. As far as overcoming this barriers, we just started to get to the tip of the iceberg before we cut off, but we said, really, you got to build those partnerships. Look at the partners you're currently working with who already have relationships in these communities that you can help leverage, that trust you, have done work with you in other areas, that could, vouch for your reputation, and ensuring, really trying to explain to the individuals and the community groups you're looking to work with why their voice is important. what you're going to use their voice for. So making sure there's full transparency on how their community voices will be used. And then, ensuring you stay connected. You don't just, go in, do a certain project with people and then disappear. Tell them the results of how their voices were used, how it helped make a difference, and then continue building that relationship so that they know there's a return on the investment that they made in spending time with you. So that's where we got so far with question 3.
That was excellent. You covered all the bases. But I want to share one thing with you. When you go into communities and they don't seem like they want you, keep going. Keep showing up. Keep showing up. Keep showing up. And that door gonna open for you. And I learned that the hard way, but it was good. I kept showing up. And then somebody just came up beside me and said, you've been here 4 times and we don't want you here. But what you want? And then they listened to me, and I'm friends for them for years, but keep showing up. Excellent. So we want to go to group 2.
So that's me. Weird that the co-facilitators dropping in here, but want to shout out my group members. So we did how can you ensure you effectively capture and incorporate diverse narratives within your project or your initiatives? And when we talked about a few different things, we kind of started the conversation by talking about something you brought up earlier in the presentation, which is if you don't educate yourself and incorporate yourself in the community, you're doomed before you enter the door, right? You can't just say, well, I know everything. I know the space, I know the people, I know everything, and then just expect that that's going to be able to whimsically make all the problems, solved and go away. So you really have to incorporate yourself into the community, learn who's around you. And we talked a little bit about not just to going to like the quantitative places, not just going to see the doctors and the data centers but going to the churches, the YMCAs, the culture groups, to help elevate your understanding of what's going on with these narratives. And then sort of the last little bit that we talked about, we started talking a little bit about what does it look like to educate yourself in a community? Is it you bring a peace offering, you make sure you're understanding the time, place, and manner you're in. We identify those barriers to entry. Is it transportation? Is it access? Is it if the person is comfortable in the space that they're in? We took a little bit of the model about the All of Us research project. For those who know about that, it's kind of like a 23andMe exchange with the government, except they're trying to target groups that were historically marginalized in medical data. And in exchange, you give them your blood or some sort of tracking or whatever, and they give you back your own genetic markers and the things that is helpful for your life, and it's all a free program. But it's going after those groups that were disenfranchised and capturing the narrative to change the narrative, right? And so I think that is something that we can all take from and see as an effective way to capture and incorporate those narratives within a project, even in a space where you've historically done wrong and tried to do better.
Excellent. And so you covered all of them, and it's just doing exactly what you're saying. What are our plans, our goals, and focus on that and move forward. Good job. And so could we have group 1?
I was going to say, Christy, because it was really your example. So will you share?
I was running my mouth. So one of the things that came to me, can you share an example from your experience where community input significantly impacted a project or decision? What were the outcomes? And the example that I talked about was currently we have a project for family caregivers around. It's a coalition for family caregivers. And the thing that has been just amazing is the direct feedback from the family caregivers themselves, and how that feedback sometimes does not align with the thoughts of organizations that may be at the table. So although this coalition is specifically to empower the family caregivers, the organizations that we serve have family caregivers, so they may be at the table. And just to kind of know sometimes that their expectations or their thoughts or what an organization from that top down level kind of thinks sometimes is not aligned. And for me, it's been important to make sure that we center the voice of that family caregiver itself, because that's what matters. Our family caregivers have developed their own set of priorities, aligned it so that it works for them. And even the example that I gave, even within that, was how they defined and looked at respite. We have this wonderful standardized operational definition of respite. And what they came back with, I was like, okay, if that's that's how you want to address it, and that's what you want to do. But then you have the organization saying, well, that's not the definition, and that's not. And I was just like, but this isn't your coalition. This isn't your voice. And so that is very important, to be able to stand in that. And I'm going to use this word, not fully meaning it, but protect that voice of the family caregiver, because it's so easy to have the top-down approach and allow the organizations to take the leadership. But this group is really about the experience of the family caregiver, not the experience of the organization. So for me, the outcomes right now are so interesting because we're in the midst of it. But the outcomes has really been just listening to how different sometimes their thoughts are around how to address things like, how do we navigate this healthcare system to get my loved one benefits that the caregiving benefit that they need. So that's just something that has really stood out for me. And I've been in certain groups and just hearing people talk, and I'm like, well, depending on what your focus is, I'm a grassroots level person, so I kind of listen to the folk because they probably have the answers more than we think we know the answers. So, but it's enjoyable. Always good for a little conflict sometimes,
Excellent. You guys did an amazing job. You guys took this really serious and you shared information. There's one thing that came to mind that I wanted to leave you with before we go to the next level, is that practice for yourself is going into uncomfortable situations, because now you can choose those uncomfortable situations. When you go out, or when you go to the restaurant, or when you go to meetings, instead of sitting with people that you know, sit with someone you don't know and learn how to start conversations. See, the thing about things that you do, you practice those things. And so you practice, the more you practice and become comfortable with it, then you can really get into the community. See, these communities that people have downtrodden and have negative things about, they are powerful. They're very intelligent about the things of life. They may not be powerful with corporate stuff, but we talk about life things and understanding and wisdom and discernment and all these really good, rich stuff. You get in the community, you're like, man, I don't deserve to be here. So I'm saying to you, because I learned, this is how I learned. I would go out, I would go to like a Costco's, and I'll sit down at the snacks place, and I'll sit there, and someone that looks different from me, because that's who I'm choosing, I'll just scoot up next to them and say, hey, how you doing? How's your day? Why something. I just start making a conversation, because I became expert in that. I don't, there's no strangers in my life anymore, because I overcame that fear, because the fear is what keeps us from, making those approaches. So that was what I want to give you. So the next thing that we're going to is when. These are 3 words, and they have a meaning. And so I want us just to open up our lines and share with me, what do when mean to you? So just open up your lines and let's just talk about when.
I'm gonna be real funny real quick. I'm sorry. The first thing that came to me, there's a song. All I do is win. It's literally a song. So that is what came to my mind. And really for me, when I hear that, we often hear that song when I'm in my fitness training. And it's really about the competition that we've made it, that we've achieved it, that we've gotten to a place that we didn't think we could get. And so when you hear, all I do is win, 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 it's just like you are there because you've accomplished that goal, whatever that goal is. So look it up. I'm sure some of you all know the song. It's a popular song, so.
The stage is anybody's. And there's no right or wrong answer.
Wow. So kind of there's no downside, you know? We often look at what could be as in a negative light or not a positive light. And you can't go into a situation, you know, like you get comfortable, you know, you build relationships, all that kind of stuff, but you can't bring that, oh, this isn't going to work. This, and I was doing it with Gary, like, how can that possibly work? You know, like it just can't because of these barriers and challenges. So don't look at it that way. You know, if you get two people in a community in a better place, that's a win. It's a win for you because you feel better because you've helped whoever. And it's a win for the community because now they can see the results. They can see that. That's going to build that trust. So that's my win-win-win. I mean, I have a lot of them, but pertaining to this discussion, that's my win-win-win.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because since I'm part of the Wayne County Oral Health Coalition, we use that phrase a lot, that if it's not 3 wins, it's a loss. That it has to be a win for your organization, for the organization you're partnering with, and for the community that you're serving. So you have to come up with a strategy where everybody gets something out of the process that you're doing. And if everyone's not getting something out of the process, you probably shouldn't use that particular process. You need to find another way of structuring the project or the work that you're doing so that your organization doesn't come out losing time, money, staff, efforts, energy. The folks that you're partnering with in the community feel like they have somebody they can trust and that they're getting something out of this process, that they're not just being used, and that whatever comes out of it actually serves the community in a positive way.
Really like that, Ife. That, as I say, it's, you know, that everybody comes away with something that they feel of value or they feel good about. But you said it very eloquently.
Anybody else? So everybody was absolutely spot on. And so the job of our work is that when we go into our communities, we go in with that concept of win, win, win. And I'm talking about a concept. If I'm coming out with a great win, everybody in that equation need to have a great win also. Sometimes I've noticed in my history, in my community, people come in and they give us trinkets, but they leave out with value stuff that ultimately ends up with a promotion or building something huge because they, you know, robbed us, but they gave us trinkets. So the thing is that if we make things equitable for everyone with our own personal intentions, because it all starts with us. Our own personal attention is, I'm going to come in the community and everybody's going to have an equal win. Now, it might not be the same thing, but equal to what they need and equal to what you need and what equal what you're bringing to the table is really paramount. So it's about changing. I would learn that when you change, the world change. And so it's when we change how we approach the work that we're doing. And I know I'm talking to the choir, but the choir, we have to sing this song to everybody that we meet. Everyone that I meet has to hear about win, win, win. Everyone hears it. And so, now, a coalition, the EPA is right, but it's outside of the coalition, it's in the streets. People talking about win, 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 win. Everybody's winning. What a wonderful world we're going to have very shortly. And that's what we're working towards. Everybody have equity and have value in the work that we do. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm not really certain because I was not able to view the screen. I'm a in-person kind of person because I get to read body language, as I said earlier. 87% of communication is body language. So I don't even know what you got out of the information that I shared. I hope you got something. And most of the time, you hear a lot of information is redundant, but I've heard a lot of things over and over again. I said, man, where was I at? I didn't hear that. And I'm hoping that it was something in this presentation that you were like, man, I'm glad she said that. I didn't know that, but now I know it better, or I like that perspective. I hope that you really got something out of it, because all I was really saying was, how do we bring and bridge the gap between people in the work that we do? There was a screen on one of my presentations that it was a bridge. It was a beautiful sight, and it was a bridge with a train. And we could be far from each other, but we can build a bridge. And we can carry our values. We can carry the things that we want to share with other people. And I'll tell you something, when you turn around and come back, you're going to have a lot of cargo, as we talked about the video, coming back with you, because everybody has gifts and talent. Early on, when America was being created, they used to do trading. And they would leave with watermelons and come back with sheepskin. Equally valuable, because I didn't have sheepskins when I left here. And when you went somewhere, you had watermelon. And that was equal because it was filling a need. Oh, we need to get back to that. So I thank you. If you have any questions, this is time that we're having questions. Any questions? Yes, you just jump in.
So this isn't a question, it's a comment to or response to something you said at the beginning of this whole talk. Like, was there something you said that really struck home? And one of the things that I wrote down with a star was realizing collective goals. So a lot of times we go in with our goals, to a community because we know that's what's best. And just kind of putting that aside till further down the road. And that just struck home for me.
That's
So
good.
I hope I can do that.
Hope is eternal.
I really appreciated the video, the poem. It made me stop and really think about what cargo I'm carrying and what cargo I need to pick up. The idea that we all have these gifts, and if we don't use them, if we don't give them away, if we aren't sharing with each other on a daily basis, if you got oranges in your cargo, after a while they'll go rotten and you have to throw it away. So I'm just looking at how do we make really good use of the time and the cargo that we have so that it doesn't go to waste. And how do we accept from other people that we might not ordinarily accept from, because sometimes we think it's being greedy or selfish, but they need to give their cargo away as well. So yeah, sheepskins and watermelons, I guess. You know.
I always laugh about getting to seniors, like like how do you attract them? How do you get them engaged? Well, one real obvious one is food. But the other thing I've been trying to just clean out and clean out and clean out everything. And 40 years of being a dental hygienist, I've collected a lot of toothbrushes and floss. So this, one day before jury fit class, I brought this big, huge bag of toothbrushes and floss and dumped it on the table. Well, you would have thought that I had brought, state dinners for everybody. I mean, they were like, oh, can I? Oh, no, I like that one. And, it opened up the conversation basically for what I'm going to start doing there. So I think it's just, maybe some little thing to get them engaged. But, do something.
That's interesting. In my community, there's a lot of seniors. And so I walk my dog a lot. And I have the luxury of stopping at the seniors' porch and sitting down and talking to them. And they have really opened up their life and what they really need. And I wouldn't have known if I hadn't have took that time. And a lot of times they just want somebody to say good morning and spend a minute listening to those stories that you hear over and over again, but they need that. And so, yeah, it's, we have needs, the necessities that we need, but there's human things that we need that outweigh the food and the clothes and the shelter, but those are necessities of need. But when we don't have that connection, we kind of die inside. And so, a lot of times, just saying good morning to somebody changes their day. Somebody told me, said, this years ago, they said, you know what, Miss Perry, I was getting ready to kill myself. And I just said, good morning, how you doing? We don't know what each other have and don't have until we talk, like you're saying, Jan, having that conversation, people start opening up. And then inside you have intuitiveness inside of you. Just like you had that intuitiveness to get toothbrushes and it was a hit. It was something inside of you telling you what you needed, but you were opening up. And that's what we have to do, is open up as people. Man, this is good. I don't know about you guys. I learned me a lot, because we are teachers and learners at the same time. And so any other questions or comments or?
I just would like to ask Zil if he would share the ham story.
I'm happy to share the ham story, which we talked about this in our small group. There's an organization that we work with that I know of in Montana about trying to get into the community, and they were running a behavioral health study. They just were, folks from Montana State University were trying to run a behavioral health study, and for the life of them, they could not get these rural communities to come out. Over and over. They tried the one time, no one showed up. And so they went, what can we incentivize a way for people to come out? And so Easter was on the horizon. And so they bought a bunch of hams. And so it was, if you all come out for ham, and participate in the study, you can get a ham. And it was just, then all of a sudden they had tons of people at the the round table / focus group / clinical study they were having. And it just shows that if you go and you think about the needs of the community, plus the soul / spirit of what's going on in that area, and you come at it from what are the needs, what do we need, what do they need, what's a want that we can come together on. So the narrative around every one of their projects now is, well, everyone just gets a ham. Like, that's the narrative. And so I kind of like that notion of, a way to approach community is everybody gets a ham.
Excellent. That's perfect. Whatever it takes to make that job happen. I have a quick story that we were in the community doing Project Healthy Living. And we noticed when we get into the inner city, we didn't have the same participation that we would have when we were outside of the city limits. When we were outside city limits, we had to get ticket takers to manage the crowd. So we did a chicken fry, and so, you come, you get screened, you get some chicken wings, but it worked. So people got chicken wings, but they got the opportunity to see how their health was. You have to be willing to do what's necessary to help people. Sometimes people know they need help, but don't know how to receive the help, and we have to kind of push them. So, you guys are, again, I'm talking to the choir. I appreciate the time that you've given me, your earnestness and your openness. But if there's no more questions, anything anybody want to share, this is your time.
Well, I'm actually going to hop in because noting that we got 1 minute left in our booked out time here, as the facilitator, I think it's my job to try to cut us off, unfortunately. But I just want to, take some time to say thank you so much to our amazing presenter. And if you got any closing remarks, you got the 30-second period to give them now.
I came across this statement from Martin Luther King. It says, love is the only thing that can turn an enemy into a friend. That's huge. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for the service that you give to the people that need you the most. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You. And I think as me and Christy are going to kind of take this time to wrap up both this meeting and the end of the year on these health equity sessions, I think there's no greater note to end on that kind of summarizes a lot of the work that we've been doing. And that quote by Dr. King, go out and work with your communities and use love as a way to be a change maker. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for sticking with us through these multiple, various different meetings we've had this year, and to Francis for all of their work and continuing to help us week in, week out, month in over the past couple of years. And this year especially. So thank you, Francis. And I'll wrap it up with any comments Christy's got. Nope. All righty. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Holidays, happy holidays.